All right, so today's video is about chordates, and
Well, hello. I didn't see you come in.
helping me today is my good friend, Mr. Lencioni.
Word.
All right, so one thing that now we're going to talk about chordates today, and chordates are anything that has a nerve cord. Okay,
A spinal cord.
they get spinal cord. It gets confused with a backbone. Not all these have backbones, which we'll get into in a second. But one thing that differs among all the chordates is how they regulate their body temperature. Now you have the terms ectothermic and endothermic. What does ecto mean?
Outside.
Okay, and what does endo mean?
Inside.
Okay, so where they get this from is endothermic organisms are able to control their own body temperature inside their bodies.
Like us.
Right. Yeah, we're able to do that. Ectothermic organisms depend on the environment around them to regulate their body temperature, so they can't actually regulate it on their own. So like lizards, that's why they're really inactive during the day.
Not because of their cold, unfeeling nature.
No. Here are some things that all chordates have. The first is called a notochord, and it's a stiff rod of cells that goes along the dorsal, in our case, that would be our back, but the dorsal side of the body of the chordate. In most of the chordates, so anything that has a backbone, it gets replaced by a backbone.
And dorsal side's like the dorsal fin of a shark, if you watch Shark Week.
Yes. Or if you don't watch Shark Week, that also applies.
It's true.
Yeah. So they have they have a nerve cord, and it's hollow. You can see on the top picture there's a notochord, that blue thing, and there's the nerve cord running alongside that. They are, for the most part, all able to move, and they also have something called pharyngeal pouches, which this is during development, so they're like gill slits. So we actually have gills while we're in the womb.
Yeah, I wish we still had
from
them.
those pharyngeal pouches, and those pharyngeal pouches actually end up developing into like our larynx and stuff.
Larynx
like that.
and
Yeah.
voice specs.
Yep.
Maybe trachea in there.
Yep. So there are actually three parts of phylum Chordata. They're little subphylums, so not quite classes, but right, Phil? Yeah. Subphylum is kind of between class and phylum. So there's what we call Urochordata, and those are what are called tunicates or sea squirts. It's right in the middle there. Believe it or not, those do have a notochord.
Mm-hmm.
Lancets, which are really primitive. They kind of look like primitive fish. They pretty much just hang out in the sand.
Yeah,
and those are in subphylum Cephalochordata. And then you got subphylum Vertebrata, which we're going to spend most of the time
Yeah,
on
those
today.
other two, like the lancelets, I think there's two species, and they're about the size of like a grain of rice, and they sit in the sand. You may have stepped on 100 of them in the ocean. You didn't even care.
Yeah. So, I mean, here's the comparison. In phylum Chordata, of all those groups, the vast majority are vertebrates. So, yeah, there's only 30 species of lancets. But anyway,
That's weak.
close.
That's
You're
weak
close.
sauce.
So anyway,
I was rounding.
in in all the vertebrates, though, and I say we because we're vertebrates, they have an endoskeleton, which includes a backbone that has a series of vertebrae.
What does endo mean?
Endo means inside. Wait, didn't I just quiz you on that?
I don't
You've turned the
remember.
tables on me, my
I don't-
friend.
I don't
Well
remember.
done. The notochord in vertebrates is really only present in the embryos, and then it kind of goes away. It's replaced by the backbone. The vertebrae in the backbone, those are individual little bones, and that's where we get our name from. The nerve cord runs through the middle of the vertebrae, and vertebrates have skulls, except for one exception. But and then no, and then invertebrates there are two pairs of limbs usually that support the skeleton. Really, well, not in the fish, but everything that's not fish, you have two
Correct.
pairs of limbs. Yeah. So anyway,
For a total of 4 limbs.
there are 7 classes within the group of vertebrates. You have class Agnatha, class Chondrichthyes, and class Osteichthyes. These are all the types of fish. Then you have amphibia, which are
Frogs.
yeah, reptilia, aves, which are birds, like avian bird flu. Well, it's a redundant statement actually. That means bird flu. But anyway, and then class Mammalia are the mammals.
Do you want bad hints? I have bad hints or no?
Sure, go for it.
When you see agnatha, A means not, like abnormal is not normal, and nath is like gnaw. So gnawing
Okay.
means chewing. These
So-
can't chew.
Oh, because they don't have jaws.
Osteoporosis is a disease, an
Bone.
old lady of the bones, and that's a bony fish. Osteo means bones.
Chondrichthyes starts with C, cartilage starts with C. Okay.
And then
The rest of those, hopefully, you know.
Yeah,
but
hopefully.
and yeah, so that was your trick for the
Oh, there
different
they are.
fish names. Yeah. So we're going to kind of group all the fish together to an extent. We're going to do a little differentiation. But anyway, of all these fish, they all have two chambered hearts. They just have an atrium and a ventricle. Blood enters the atrium, gets pumped out through the ventricle. They use gills for respiration. I think everyone kind of knows that. They have bodies that are adapted to life in the water, so they have those torpedo-shaped bodies that I don't want to call them aerodynamic because aerodynamic means air, but
hydrodynamic.
Hydrodynamic, sure, yeah. And then they do have fins that allow for stabilization, and they're ectothermic, so their temperature is regulated by the environment.
Yep. Just for the streamlined bodies, like, have you ever dove into a pool and what's it called? Body flop. Flop body. What the heck is that called? Body flop.
Belly flop.
Belly flop.
Yeah.
Are you streamlined?
Not when I do that,
No.
But when I dive, I don't dive actually. I'm afraid. I was always afraid of it as a kid, and I never learned. Now my students all know that.
No. So next time you see him in class, be like, "It's the deep end," and play some water music, and he'll cry, and we'll all laugh.
All right. So now Agnatha, as Miss Lindsay pointed out, are the jawless fish. They're considered very primitive. They do not have a fully developed nerve column. They retain their.
To my jawless fish impression over here.
What's that? Very nice. They retain that notochord throughout their entire life, so they never really get those vertebrae that replace it. And they have a skeleton that's made of cartilage. Some examples of these are hagfish and lampreys. Lampreys are actually an invasive species that we're going to talk a lot about in the archaeology unit.
Bad news.
Yeah.
Bad news.
So you'll get to know lampreys pretty well. Oh, there's
not that well.
Hopefully not that well. Yeah, lampreys, and they basically latch onto things and suck the blood.
Because they don't have jaws.
Right. So chondrichthyes are the cartilage skeleton fish.
They're sharks.
Yeah, sharks and skates and rays and dogfish.
Other sharks.
Which dogfish are technically sharks, but they have strong pairs of jaws, which is a stereotype we all have of sharks, and their teeth pop up and replace very easily.
That's awesome.
They have separate sexes, and they actually have internal fertilization during sexual reproduction. And they have two pairs of fins, the pectoral, which is at the front, and the pelvic, which is towards the back. They have a caudal fin. Hopefully you guys remember this from the shark key that we did earlier. And they also, this is kind of cool, they have a very oily liver, and that helps keep them buoyant in the water so they don't sink too far.
Did you in college, you ever dissect a shark?
We dissected a skate. I dissected a shark like in middle school.
I love the liver. It was like the bar of soap. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yeah, it was
so
really
oily.
nasty, yeah. The skate was hard to dissect because they got a really weird body.
Yeah, because it's all thin. I believe it.
Yeah. So anyway, there's sharks, rays, and skates. But osteichthyes, those are the bony fish. They actually have bone as opposed to cartilage in their skeleton. They have a well-developed vertebral column, meaning they actually have bones. And vertebrae. Since they have that, they do not have a notochord present in their adult form. They also have pectoral and pelvic fins and a powerful caudal fin. They have scales.
Yeah, if you're a fisherman, you gotta.
Yeah, sharks don't really have scales.
No.
And nor do lampreys. It's more of a thing with bony fish. They have scales. There are 4 gills on each side, and they're protected by this kind of protective plate called an operculum.
From Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
He did that in the fight. That was an operculum.
Yeah.
See, kids, the movie's not funny anymore. You were learning.
So, and then there's like an arch of bone that supports each gill, too, and it helps them go like...
Yeah.
Here are some examples of fish. I picked some rather exotic examples, but like your bluegill, your northern pike, your bass.
Goldfish.
Pretty much anything you go and catch in the lake around here is a bony fish. I got flounder, an eel, and a blobfish here.
Oh, I thought that was you.
That's funny.
Same hairstyle.
So now we're going to talk about amphibians.
Amphi means both, and bio means life. Why do you think amphibians are called that?
Because they must have different life stages.
That is correct.
Yeah. So there are 3 orders of amphibians now. There used to be way more amphibians on this planet.
It used to be the land of the frog.
Yep. And now we just split into order Chordata, which has salamanders, Anura is the frogs and toads, and then Caecilians are in Gymnophionia. Hopefully I said that right. But to go with your dual life sort of thing, the key trait of amphibians is they live on land, but they need to go into water to reproduce. And not only that, but they generally they go through metamorphosis, right? So think of What do frogs start off as?
Tadpoles.
Right. Every amphibian starts as some sort of infant form and then grows into its adult form.
And they're all the infant forms, or if it's not all, it's like 95%. I'm making that number up, but they're all aquatic.
Yeah, they live in water.
Forms are.
Yeah, and then the adult forms go out and live on land.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they want to reproduce, they go back to the water. And that's really the key trait of amphibians is that whole pattern of life. They reproduce sexually, and they return to water to do that. They do maintain smooth, moist skin. Even when they're out on land, they try to stay moist. So you don't see them in really dry environments, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and like there are some desert frogs once in a while, but they like build these burrows far enough down that they trap the water.
Oh, really?
Do they breathe through their skin, or did I just make that up?
They can.
Okay.
Some can, yeah. And amphibians are ectothermic, which means that they depend on the environment to regulate temperature. So notice we went through ectothermic and endothermic. We have not encountered an endothermic animal yet, right?
Except for us two.
Well, yeah, but someone's printing something while we record this.
Focus, stay the course.
Printer break. All right. So, amphibians have lungs, although as I had in fact today earlier, there was actually a salamander they discovered that doesn't have lungs. Kind of cool.
Maybe it's a fish.
But no, it's a salamander.
Okay, right.
Amphibians live in the water, so they breathe with their gills, but then as they grow, they lose the gills and they go out on the land. They use their lungs. They have a 3-chambered heart, so you can kind of follow the steps here, but basically really quick, there's 2 atria where the blood collects, and there's 1 ventricle where it all pumps out. This is kind of an inefficient process. Now, one thing we're going to do in class is we're actually going to take a look at the hearts of each of these. So we'll go into this in detail in class.
Send me that day of activities. That sounds cool.
Yeah, I like going through all the hearts. It's cool. Yeah. So, and as you can see, there's a difference between the amphibian heart and the human heart. We actually have 4 chambers, whereas amphibians have 3.
We're the best of the best.